omi tútù, ilé tútù, orí tútù, ọ̀nà tútù, tútù lẹ́rọ̀yé. Ìbà Olódùmarè tẹ̀lẹ̀ rẹ̀ káyé. Ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà òdùkọ̀tún, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà òdùkọ̀sì, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà bàràpẹ̀tù, ìbà Ifá akérèfínúṣọgbọ́n, ìbà Kọ́dá, ìbà Ṣẹ̀dá, ìbà Babalótùfẹ̀, ìbà Mẹ̀bọ́n lédè Rẹ́mọ, ìbà Ayéran iwájú awálèrò ẹ̀yìn. Bí ẹ̀kọ́ ló bá jùbà ilẹ̀ ìlà lọ́nu, ọmọ tí kì í jùbà kí bàpá. Ẹ̀yin òrìṣà gbogbo, kí gbogbo nǹkan lọ tààràtà fún wa lónìí. Lónìí mo wà pẹ̀lú Zozo tí a máa sọ̀rọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ọgbọ́n, ọ̀rọ̀ tó wúlò, kí ọ̀rọ̀ wa lọ tààràtà fún wa. Àṣẹ, àṣẹ, àṣẹ o.
Àṣẹ o. Latitude 0, longitude 0. Speaking from the center of the world, Ghana. This is where we are. This is the center of Pan-Africanism. Moving black people forward, uniting us on the same platform, telling the stories that concerns us. Boom! Zo TV talking points. Do not change the dial. Stay tuned. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, we are back again. You know, this platform is for knowledge seekers. If you are seeking for knowledge, if you want to go back to your roots as an African, you want to get some vital information about who you are, this is the platform you need to stay on. We don't come here to joke. So if you are watching us and you think these are some group of guys coming to just, speak out some nonsense or something that you think that is nonsense, no. We are very serious people. Seeking for knowledge, Zo TV talking point. Anyway, I have my teacher and my lecturer and everything in the classroom again. But let me tell you my story. A little small story. There is this word that has been ringing in my ears 7-8 years now. It's not too long ago, only 7-8 years. And I keep thinking, how come all of a sudden this word is ringing in my head every corner you go? But at the same time too, I don't think that a lot of people have heard the same word that has been ringing in my head. Anyway, all our history in Africa predominantly start from Europeans coming to Africa. So it looks like without colonization, Africans don't really have history. So they will say, when Europeans came to Ghana in 1482, da. And it's like that in almost every country on the continent. Now, with the movement of black people or Africans going back to their roots, if we don't have history, if we don't have what we are going for, how do we get there? There's no history book in Ghana here that will be talking about 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century. It's like everything is missing. So, where were we? If we are talking about 1482 when Europeans came to Ghana, before 1482, what happened? If there's 1482, there is 1382. There's 1382, there is what? 1282. Go back, go down, up to 1st century. But you tell me, anyway, if you are a researcher or a lecturer or some sort of guy that has a lot of knowledge on African history, go to our comment section and update us on some of the books that we need to read. Pre-colonial Africa, you get what I mean? Let's read something about pre-colonial. Before the intervention of the white man on our land, what were we doing? Now, this is not where I even want to take you to. I want to now speed the boat to somewhere very, 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 very thousands of years gone. So the word that has been ringing in my head is Kemet. Kemet. I don't know if I am pronouncing it very well. It's Kemet. So I keep hearing about Kemet. Da-di-da, Kemet, blah, 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 Kemet. Egypt. Now I'm going, is it the same thing or is it different? So you go on bigger platforms now and you realize that Kemet is now becoming something that a lot of Africans are talking about. I want to give a very big credit to our brothers and sisters beyond the Atlantic Ocean. Brothers and sisters in the diaspora. They have been one of the biggest researchers and making sure that this pan-Africanism and Afrocentrism is on the rise. When I say this, a lot of people don't understand what I mean, but what I mean is sisters and brothers in the diaspora, particularly African Americans and people from the Caribbean island, have been pushing the agenda of researching Africans' origin. They are one of the few people who have not given up on the continent. They keep pushing it and finding out, doing research and taking us back to where we need to go. African researchers on the continent, yes, they've done their part, but I think that they need to do more. So kudos to sisters and brothers from the diaspora making sure that, this whole history and where we come from has been taken to the next level. The first time I saw a group of people going to Egypt as a group of travelers was watching a guy called Ashra Kwesi from the United States. And they were going to visit Egypt, talking about Kemet and all that. And I was like, wow, I've never heard of this on the Ghanaian land before. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too far because today we are just going to touch on Kemet. Why Kemet? The story is too far gone. We can't even get to 1st century in Ghana. We can't get to 3rd century in Ghana. We haven't even digested that one yet. And then there is this man who wants to talk about Kemet. Man, I hope you guys are ready. Before we do that, we are going to toast. We're going to cheers to the crown by sharing a pito from Bolgatanga. If you know where Bolgatanga is, fine. If you don't know, please Google it. And then the only way you can have this special brewed pito from millet is to visit the house pallet kitchen. Anyway, my guest is going to have some small drink with me and then, we will enjoy it as we go. Serious conversation. Don't think because we want to drink pito, we are not serious. We are very, 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 very serious. Okay? Yeah. Cheers to the crown. Cheers to the crown. Cheers to the crown.
Omi tútù, ilé tútù, orí tútù, ọ̀nà tútù, tútù láròyé. Ìbà Olódùmarè tẹ̀lẹ̀ káyé. Ìgbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà Òdùkọ̀tún, ìgbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà Òdùkọ̀sì. Ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà Bàràpẹ̀tù. Ìbà Ifá Akéréfinú Ṣọgbọ́n. Ìbà Kọ́dá, ìbà Ṣẹ̀dá. Ìbà Rọ̀bọ̀lótùfẹ̀. Ìbà Mẹ̀bọ́n lóde Rẹ́mọ. Ìbà Ayẹ̀ràn Iwájú Awálèrò Ẹ̀yìn. Bí ẹ̀kọ́ ló bá jùbà ilẹ̀ ìlà lọ́nu ọmọ tí kì í jùbà kí bàpá. Ẹ̀yin òrìṣà gbogbo, kí gbogbo nǹkan lọ tààràtà fún wa lónìí. Lónìí mo wà pẹ̀lú Zozo tí a máa sọ̀rọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ọgbọ́n ọ̀rọ̀ tó wúlò kí ọ̀rọ̀ wa lọ tààràtà fún wa. Àṣẹ 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 o.
Àṣẹ o. Man, you see, I told you something that is good. It's different. I am very sure that was Yoruba language. I don't speak Yoruba though, but I can feel the energy of what was being said over there. We all know that this is some sort of libation that we need to carry our day with when we begin our day. So, my man, the floor is yours now.
Okay.
As I said, we haven't done centuries, and you are taking us back to Kemet. What is Kemet? Where is Kemet?
Yeah.
What is it?
So when people think of Kemet, most people think ancient Egypt, right? Now, the reason why people have heard the term Kemet and they've heard the term ancient Egypt, but usually they haven't heard the term Kemet, is because of what Kemet actually means, which literally translates to the same thing as Abibimai, referring to a land of black people.
Land of black people.
Exactly. So you have white Egyptologists and then their lackeys, that's their paid agents, and also unpaid agents who say, oh no, it just means that the soil is black. But then you actually come to texts like during the reign of Jekare Isesi, where you had...
Can you please mention that name again?
Jekare Isesi. This is a
Jekare
ruler of
Isesi.
classical Kemet in what they call the so-called Old Kingdom.
Okay.
And during this time, you know, he sent an expedition, and in the expedition to the Sinai Peninsula, there was a man named Sabi Kem. So again, Kem refers to blackness. So you have an individual. So you can't say, oh, it's referring to the land when you actually have an individual. His name is Sabi Kem. You also have Henenit Kem after that. You have Hepi Kem. So you have all these individuals who are referring to themselves as, it would be like if you call yourself Black Zozo.
Yeah.
You see, if I call myself Obadele Dudu, right, then this is actually telling you something about me. And then also you find in the pyramid text that of Pepi II, you find Pepi the First, Pepi the Second, other versions of the pyramid text, the first of which starts with Wenis, also known as Unas, where you have a line that says you stand in front of the Kemet you, and now that's the plural of black people.
Kemet you.
Kemet you.
Okay.
It's similar to, I know, Eve, that use an O sound for a plural. Someone told me that Afla is like one reed, and then Aflau is saying reeds plural. So it's that same type of O that's used, you know, in order to make plurals that you had in classical Kemet. That you still have that, you know, in Ebe and other languages do a similar type of thing. But, you know, it's the same thing. So you have Kemet, Kemeti, Kemetiu. So all of those are derived from the original Kem, and Kem is represented as a piece of charcoal. And interestingly enough, that's where the root of the word chemistry comes from. And it refers to the
word
chemistry, exactly, chem, right? And it refers to the chemical transformation that happens when a piece of wood is burnt into charcoal. So that's the chem. And interestingly, again, you find that a lot of languages, the word for black is related to the word for charcoal.
Yeah.
So in Chi, for example, you say bidie. That's the same B that you have in Abibimai, Abibifor. The B in there is referring to blackness. You have it in Bri as well. So that B is referring to blackness. In the Songhai language, which is spoken in Gao, you know, you have what they call Ghana, Mali, Songhai. That spoken in Gao, they use the word bibi to refer to blackness. And again, you see that connection. And Yoruba, du, right? Edu is referring to charcoal. Then you have that du in Adulawa, which is the word for a black person. So Adulawa. And then also in Kikongo, the word kala refers to coal or charcoal. And then also that's a word referring to blackness, right?
So where did the word Egypt come from?
So
because Egypt now, you know, is supposed to be the old one was Kemet, but not Egypt. But who brought Egypt? Who?
Right.
Yeah. Where was the word Egypt?
So Kemet was actually, you know, a place that existed for thousands and thousands of years. By the lowest dates, you know, up to 3,400 BCE, thereabout, and then you have longer chronologies that place it back even further. With archaeological evidence to support. But even if we go with that shorter chronology, in the history you had at around 1500 BCE an invasion by those who are called Hakau Hasut.
Hakau
Hasut.
Hakau
Hasut, right? Literally rulers of foreign lands. And they were depicted as what you would see today as Arab type people, the types of people you would see in Israel. So these were invaders who were driven out in the first war of black liberation, which drove them out of the land of black people. So that was one invader. After that, you had the Achaemenids. These are the Persians who came in as invaders. They were driven out. They came back again. And then after that, you had the Assyrians who were invaders. After this, you also had the Greeks who came in. So to come to answer your question, it was during the Greek time that you had the term Aegyptos. And Aegyptos is generally understood to be a mispronunciation, a Greek pronunciation of Hut Ka Peta. So Hut is referring to enclosure. Ka is what and I can't be the Kra. That's the aspect of the human being that is, you know, related to your destiny, life force, things of that nature. And then Pata is the Necha that was associated with creation. From the earliest capital of Min Nefer, you had this idea of Ptah as being oftentimes a hewer, a craftsman, someone who creates through that,
Okay.
that type of process.
Yeah.
So, through this, you have Hukka Ptah is actually referring to a temple. And then it's thought that through Senectiki, also known as Pars Pro Toto, where the name of a part of a thing comes to be generally ascribed to the entire thing.
Yeah.
Right. So coming from the name of a temple, now they just decide to refer to the entire land as that. But again, the indigents refer to it as Kemet, and you still find
So
it
the indigents refer to as Kemet,
right.
but the Greek,
Exactly.
now that word you mentioned, it got corrupted. Aegyptus became,
right.
How did the Aegyptus
So
became Egypt?
Kapata became Aegyptos, and eventually that became Egypt.
Okay.
Right. So basically cutting off the Greek suffix,
Yeah.
and then dealing with Egypt instead of just Aegyptos.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to go into Bible. I don't want to go into Bible.
Okay.
But the little thing I know about the Bible is the Bible talk about Egypt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean does the Bible talk about Kemet?
No, so again, it depends on which version of the Bible you're reading.
Yeah.
So if you're reading a Coptic version of the Bible,
Coptic
Coptic is the very last stage of what is called Ro in Kemet, literally the mouth of Kemet. That's what they would call the language. Mm-hmm. Language itself comes from the word for tongue. So by the same token, Ro in Kemet is like the mouth, the language of Kemet. And the written version of it is what's referred to as Medu Necha. And then you have different stages of that as well, hieratic, demotic, so forth. Now, in the Coptic version of it, you have the word Kame still found in the Song of Solomon and then also in the Song of Songs. Mm-hmm. So there's a part where it says, I am black but comely, something along those lines. Right. And when you go to the Coptic version, it says Kame, right? Mm-hmm. So Kame is directly referring to the word black that you have in English, Kame, and then it's still related to the original word Kemet.
Okay.
People use Coptic, so generally in terms of Egyptology, people will look at either doing just a convention where anytime, so in Medu Necha, the vowels aren't written down. So to get the vowels, you'll look at Coptic in order to find out what those vowels were. Okay. But then there's another convention where you say Kemet, right? That's coming from a modern day convention where anytime they don't know the vowels, they just use the letter E inside, right? But again, if you're going to actually try to find out what those vowels were, when you look at Coptic, you can still find this Kame. Mm-hmm. So for those who are interested, you can actually look up a Coptic version of the Bible and you'll actually see that. Okay. And the T is dropped off because at the later stage of the language, the feminine suffix tended to be dropped.
Okay, so there is an acknowledgement from the Coptic side that Kemet, does exist.
Refers to the word black.
Black,
you still find it attested there.
What was the transitional period where it became Egypt? Mm-hmm. How many years probably did you think that happened? Kemet was for maybe blah 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 years, and then gradually faded out to become Egypt. What's the time span? Do you think that could have happened?
So the first attestations that you find of it again is during the Old Kingdom. So you're talking, a good, let's say between 2,500 to 3,000 years BCE in terms of the first attestations. But then when you come to the Greek terms, this is dated from 332 BCE. So again, you have a good 3,000 years of, Kemet being used. First, you see again as used for the name of individuals. Yeah. Then you also find it as used as, the name collectively as Kemetiu. Yeah. And then you come to, and for example, there's a story of Smea Sechetipen, which is, they call it the story of the eloquent peasant, but literally it's a story of Sechetipen, like a peasant farmer. Mm-hmm. And he says in it that he's going down into Kemet. So he lives at a place called the Salt Plains, but he's going down into, Kemet. Now, that's what they refer to as Wadi Netron to this day. So he's using the term Kemet to refer to the land. So earlier on, you have individuals using Kem to refer to themselves. In text, you see it used collectively. Yeah. Then you also see it, used as the name of the land, referring to, again, land of the people, Kemetiu, and then also the individual referring to. So again, a good, let's say, 2,500 or 3,000 years attested of the term Kemet being used. Yeah. But then at the very end is where you have the Greeks being, basically overrunning Kemet, Alexander the Greek coming in. Mm-hmm. And then, you have Manetho, who, people will talk about Kemet and they'll start talking about dynasties.
Yeah.
And it's really due to Manetho's Egyptaica, where he's trying to explain the history of Kemet to these invaders who just came in and they don't know anything about it.
So are we going to say that Kemet is actually like the first name for how do you call it, the continent Africa?
Right.
Or is there any other name different? Because maybe we are in this classroom now, we're doing Kemet. 20 years down the drain again, you'll be hearing another name coming out.
So what's significant about Kemet is that it refers to the land of black people, and you find that anytime we conceptualize this land in our own languages, we refer to it as the land of black people, and even invaders refer to it as the land of black people. So I'll give you some examples that I tend to give. So again, we mentioned Abibimai, literally translating to land of black people, coming from the root Bibi, referring to blackness, and then Oman referring to nation or land. So you're saying land of black people. In Yoruba, you say Ile, Adulawa, literally land of those who are black in color. So if you say Africa, it doesn't tell you anything, but when you're speaking Yoruba, instantly you know who the land is for and who belongs to the land. If you look at the Bambara language, Bamanakan, they say Farafina, and that's referring to, again, land of black people. Farafin being an individual black person, then Farafina. If you look at Wolof language, Reo Nit Kunyul, referring to land of black people. Reo is land. Nit, human being, is the same that you have a Ni in Chi or Bibini, Bruni. And Yoruba, they say Eni for a human being person. So you see these types of connections. So again, if you look at Igbo, Allah and DCOG, land of black people. If you look at Kikongo and Sia Bandombe, but then even the Arabs, when they have the name Sudan, right? You have the country Sudan. They refer to the land as Bilad as Sudan, referring to the land of the black people. And then even the Greeks themselves refer to the land as Ethiopia. Ethi meaning, burnt, and then ops meaning face. So it means that, it's very clear that it's referring to the people are black, as opposed to what the crook Egyptologists say, they're just referring to the land as black, because that doesn't make any sense. But this is a point I want to make. Even if they wanted to say that it's referring to the land being black, in the folklore, the mythology of the people of classical Kemet, they said they were made by Khnum. Khnum is one of the Necheru who would take the clay, the silt from Elephantine. Now Elephantine is Abu, is what it was called in classical Kemet. It is an island in the middle of the Nile, right, which would be called Hapi. Now, you had this inundation where the blackest of the silt would have been deposited there, and they say that Cheru is the name of this type of deep dark ochre. So it said that Khnum made the people out of this black ochre. So even if you wanted to say it's referring to the land being black, the people themselves say that they're made out of the black land. So again, that's what's very important.
I'll hold you on that for now. Have you heard of Arkabulan?
Yes.
What's Arkabulan?
So that is traced to Dr. Yosef ben Yakanen. Yosef ben Yakanen. He's an author who wrote Black Man of the Nile and His Family.
Black Man of the Nile.
And His Family, and other very influential texts, let's say in the 1980s.
Where did he come from?
So he came from the Caribbean islands. He schooled in the U.S. He became a professor also in the U.S., but in various places. So according to
African?
Yeah, he's a black man.
Okay.
And he actually preferred to use the term black person because African doesn't tell you anything. Because you can say African and then they'll start pointing at Dutch Boers in South Africa. You'll say African and then they're pointing to Arabs in the African Union. You understand? But when we use our own languages, we're actually referring to the real people who the land is associated with. And we find that again in our own languages. So basically he's translating what we have in our own worldview into English as a black man. So yes, he was a black man, very, very black man. And the one who you mentioned, Ashra Kwesi, he's the one who took Ashra Kwesi to Kemet, where Ashra Kwesi, that was his introduction into Kemet, as well as many other people, because Nana Yosef ben Yakanen had been going to Kemet all the way back into like the 1930s, 1940s. So that's, long before a lot of people were thinking about Kemet or anything about Kemet.
Anyway, let's come to the Al-Kabulan.
Yes, so the only attestation that I've ever come across for Al-Kabulan is through him. Like I've never come across any primary text, any primary documents, anything that says Al-Kabulan. And it's a bit suspect to me that it starts with Al, which sounds very Arabic, in that. And then even, when you read Black Man of the Nile and his family, you don't get a breakdown of like what are the parts of it. Does it refer to, does the owl mean something in terms of like a definite article? Is the Kebulan, is it referring to black? Like, what is it? So for me, I'm always looking at primary sources. I'm very respectful to Nana Yosef Ben Yakinen. He actually came to our bookstore and cultural center where we presented him with an award for lifetime achievement and so forth and so on. But I don't use Al Kebulan because I don't know any primary text that uses that anywhere.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Viewers, if you are watching this, yes, you are welcome to Zo TV Talking Points. Seekers of knowledge, this is where you come. If you want to know about your origin, where you come from, as an African or as a black person, this is the station you have to tune in. Zo TV is the frequency. Be part of the family and share your comment and all that. But Kemet, does it cover the entire Africa?
So that was the intent of the rulers, and we can see this through the actual stela, particularly the boundary stela that they left. So, for example, you have ruler after ruler who would say, "My southern boundary is a they would mention like the place where the particular southern boundary is." If you go to Jehuti Mes, who they call Tutmos II, he says that his southern Tutmos II. The original name is Jehuti Mes. Jehuti referring to the divinity of writing, mathematics, science, so forth. So,
did we write?
Yes.
Africans write.
Yeah, we actually invented writing, right?
Hey, did you hear that? They told us in schools that we never wrote. That's what they told us.
Yeah. So if you're interested, you can look at research from actually this guy Gunter Dreyer, where he goes into bone and ivory tags that predate writing in Mesopotamia by some 200 years.
I think we'll make
that's a sidebar. We can come back there.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back.
Yeah.
Because we need to come and prove to our enemies that, we did. We were writing. We didn't write English probably, but we were writing a lot of things in our own language.
So even English is derived from Latin, and the Latin is derived from Greek, and the Greek is derived from Medu-Neter. So the English still don't have a writing system. They still haven't invented a writing system.
Boom!
As we say here.
Said, we'll keep that.
We'll come back to that. So as I was mentioning, you have this stela, the boundary stela of Jehuti Mes, who they call Tutmos II, where he says that my southern boundary is at Wepta. Now, Wepta is referring to the equator. It's literally referring to the opening of the earth, the opening of the world.
Okay.
So each ruler is saying my southern boundary is further south than my father. So
my southern boundary
is further south than my father. You have Sinwosret who's saying that, Nesubiti Sinwosret, where he's saying that any son of mine who doesn't protect this southern boundary is no son of mine. So literally, they're always trying to bring in more black people and more lands of black people. And this is a thing that unless you understand what Kemet means, you don't understand any reason why they're doing that, because they're not trying to go into what's now modern day Palestine. Like not until after the Hyksos that, you start to see a permanent, foothold there. And that's what Jehuti Mes, the third, right? Yeah. This is after the expulsion of the Hyksos that now we start to do punitive campaigns and we start to actually, let them marry in and bring the princes into the court and so forth. But up to that point in time, you find text after text about building walls in order to keep them out. So, for example, in the prophecy of Nefertiti, we're building walls to keep out the non-blacks. These are what we call the Amu, the foreigners.
So
but we're just really quick, just so I can land. Yeah. But we're always trying to bring in more black people and always trying to bring in more lands of black people. So again, they're trying to get comprehensive. So if you look from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the equator, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot of land. Yes. So every, initiative is trying to bring in more black people, but it doesn't make any sense until you understand that Kemet means the land of black people. Mm-hmm. So of course they're trying to get eventually to what would be the entire continent. And again, that's what the military campaigns into the South are about. Yeah. And, you see the Magi who are, fully incorporated. They start off as a different population, quote unquote Nubians. They're fully brought in. And that's the reason why. So you find not only trying to bring in black people, actually trying to drive non-black people out. And that's through, the majority of the history up until this paradigm shift where now, after the driving out of the Hyksos, you start to see an infusion of non-black people into the land of black people. Another text I mentioned is Sanhat. So in a text called Sanhat, he mentions that on his way, he reaches the walls of the ruler, which were built to trample the sand-faring Bedouins, right? So like literally what he's talking about here are walls that were built in order to keep them out. In the, story of It's actually a historical autobiography of Yamo, son of Abana. He actually goes into the campaigns that were used to drive the Hyksos out. You have, again, in the prophecy of Nefertiti is about driving out these Amu, these non-black, foreigners from the land of black people.
Okay.
So, it's very clear, but nothing becomes clear until you understand what Kemet means. If you say Egypt, then nothing, becomes evident or apparent. But as soon as you see Kemet, I have a book that I'm working on called The Construction of Black Civilization.
Okay.
Now, previously, I was using the working title of the classical Kemetu origins of Pan-Africanism, but I'm trying to, wean the Africa out and actually deal with the word black as we used to do back in the day.
So come back to the question. That means that the entire Africa was Kemet.
Yeah, and even more so because the term Africa was only used for a tiny strip of coastal land.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to use it to refer to the entire continent.
Okay.
So just really quick, I think this is an important point.
Yeah.
So you have the Second and Third Punic Wars. So this is Hannibal, right? Nana Hannibal, who went in and took the war to the Romans on the Italian peninsula, crossed the Alps and so forth. That, you have the Second Punic War, the Third Punic War. And what the Romans did is they referred to the conquered territory. This is after Scipio Africanus was able to finally, conquer Carthage. That tiny strip of coastal land that's now modern day Tunisia, that's what was called Africa. It didn't refer to the entire continent. It was just that thin, tiny thing. But a similar thing to what happened with Hukapata being used to refer to, quote unquote, Egypt happened with that this tiny strip of land, which was all that they had conquered, they started to refer, because they didn't know where the back edge of it is. Like, they don't know that Umzansi is there. They don't know that Congo is there. They don't know about any of these things. So they just start to say, well, all of that is Provincia Africa Proconsularis, which is the province of Africa, which is ruled by the pro-council, right? You have the pro-vice chancellor. This is like the vice, right? So, that's what you have going on. So it's like, well, how can you now say that this tiny strip of land should be used to, refer to the entire continent? Okay. While Kemet shouldn't be, when Kemet, he's literally saying that my southern boundary is all the way to the equator. So through actual force of, arms and diplomacy and trade, we were actually able to get more of the continent into what is Kemet proper than the Romans ever did for what they referred to as Africa.
Okay. So now, we go back to Kemet again. Mm-hmm. How did Kemet change hands to become Egypt?
Very good.
That is, was it the fall of Kemet? Mm-hmm. Did the kingdom fall, or the empire fell, or what happened for it to change to become Egypt? Because then, hearing what you say, there was a lot of Greek dominance, and
that's
people
towards
from
the end.
People from the Mediterranean. So how did we lose it? How come we couldn't keep it and we lost it and it became Egypt? And now the whole of Egypt is sort of whitewashed. That Africans, even in Africa, don't believe that they have any ancestry.
Well, not the whole of Egypt. Once you get to Aswan, you'll see people who look exactly like you. Aswan. Okay. So once you start going south, you find the black people who didn't migrate. So a lot of us migrated away. We say we can't be under these Persians and Assyrians and Greeks and Romans and Arabs. So a lot of people migrated away, but you still have huge pockets of black people who are still there to this day. Yeah. But to answer your question directly, you have many wars that were fought in order to keep non-black people out and then also to drive them out anytime that they came in. So even if you look at the Narmer palette, now people look at this as the foundational, document. It's actually a palette that was used for, mixing. If you see like the Hausa people, they'll put this like charcoal on their eyes. You'll see that. That's what they would use in classical Kemet, and it was thought to have medicinal properties.
The one they use for like a makeup.
It looks like a makeup thing that they put. So they did that in classical Kemet. So you have all these palettes, like the battlefield palettes, the Libyan palettes. You have the Narmer palette, which is the one that I'm referring to. So on the Narmer palette, you see on one side, he's wearing the white crown, which is associated with Upper Kemet. On the other side, he's wearing the red crown, which is associated with Lower Kemet.
Okay, keep on it. So there was Upper Kemet and there was Lower Kemet.
Right. So Upper is the south.
Upper Kemet now
is the south.
Is the south.
Right. And Lower Kemet, yes.
And Lower Kemet.
And it includes parts of what is now known as Sudan.
So Lower Kemet is
going to the Mediterranean.
Where Sudan is.
No. It's the exact opposite. So it's based on
opposite.
elevation. So think about the Ethiopian highlands, right?
Right.
And then think at sea level Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
So upper Kemet is referring to that which is upper, right, in terms of elevation. And you have the Itru Hapi, that's what they call the Nile River, which is flowing down to lower Kemet.
Yeah.
So it's actually based on what the elevation is. So you have upper Kemet and lower Kemet. Now, on the normal palette, you see those who have afros, right?
Yeah.
And they are smiting and killing those who have what looks like stringy hair,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you can look at this as a foundational document in terms of this. But then you have other wars, such as during the time of, Pepi, I mentioned earlier, you had a general named Weni, who talks about, using a classic pincer move to go to gazelle hair.
All wars that went on before Kemet changed hands to become Egypt.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about now.
To keep the non-black people out, the Amu, the foreigners, to keep them out and to drive them out anytime that they came. And that's actually the crux of the book that I'm writing, is looking at the military campaigns where we drove them out and where we kept them out and so forth and so on. I already mentioned the expulsion of the Hyksos, the prophecy of Nefertiti. I mentioned, some of these other texts. But all of those are wars and campaigns and battles that were used to either keep them out or, if they come in, to drive them out. So it's very significant. You have what's referred to as the Lamentations of Ipuwer. That's thought to be a literary text, but it's on the same subject that, when these Amu, these foreigners come in, they bring death and destruction, rape and ravish, pillage and plunder, right? So it's very clear throughout. And essentially, you can look at the periods of Kemet in terms of the black periods where the black people are in control versus the periods where the Amu come in. And that's like when the Hyksos came in. That's like where the Persians came in. So, you're asking how it changed hands.
Yeah, I wanted to know how did we arrive at being Egypt.
Exactly.
And so all of a sudden, it's like we've lost it and we are now in Egypt. So,
so that's what we're coming to. So you had subsequent invasions. So you're talking around, around, let's say, 2,000 some odd years of history of keeping them out. Eventually, you have the Achaemenid Empire. This is referring to the Persians. So the Persians were able to come in, but then they were driven out by the black people who are coming from the south, right? So all of the rulers are black. You look at Mentuhotep II and so forth and so on. All the rulers are black up until the Hyksos, right? Right. All the way up until the Hakau Hasut, who are referred to as the Hyksos. And the Hyksos are by Manetho thought to be the same as what are referred to as the Israelites, the Hebrews, and so forth and so on.
That's the Hyksos.
Yes, that's the Hyksos. Now, in the contemporary documentation, at the time that they were there, they came in bringing death and destruction, pillage and plunder, ravish, and, raping the people.
Zo TV Talking Points. Do not change the dial. Stay tuned.